Blood of the Archon. Chapter 10. The Interrogation. It took Raven 2.5 weeks to reach the region of the Mirewoods in northern Aethel. Well, at least it wasn't cold. It was wet and cloudy and full of corpses, but hey, it wasn't cold. And whether he liked it or not, it was exactly what he was looking for. The mountains surrounding the small village of Caer Diglin were all but abandoned. The villagers had fled to the safety of the town once the undead had appeared. Said undead also supplied ample opportunity for Raven to vent his frustration in a semi-productive way. In theory, it was perfect. In theory being the operative term. On his first day there, he was chased off and nearly killed by a pack of wolves. They didn't get him, but they did make off with a considerable amount of the venison he'd bought in Ushin's watch. On the second day, a group of bandits attempted to rob him. They did not succeed. So much for avoiding unnecessary bloodshed. At least he got a new bow out of it, and some coin. On the third day, he got caught in the rain and got sick. It was awful. He couldn't stop shivering and coughing. He wanted to give it a few days, hoping it would just go away so he could avoid any more human interaction. That was until the night terrors began. He was staying in a small, dank cave at the time, and there wasn't a night where he didn't wake up in a cold sweat, feeling the need to vomit. He never remembered the night terrors. Of that, at least, he was grateful. He went to Caer Diglin on his 6th day in the area. Once again, he found out that the Legion hadn't plastered his face all over the walls. And he had been bathing in the rivers, so he wasn't as filthy as when he entered Ushin's watch, so no one paid him any mind. Well, that wasn't necessarily true. He was approached by a small woman with mousy brown hair and eyes the color of turquoise. She had her ears under her hair, but the gemstone eyes were enough to indicate she was at least of elven blood. The woman had noticed how ill Raven looked and offered him a cup of tea. He didn't want to accept. What if he hurt her too? The idea of a warm drink was simply too tempting, and Raven was so very tired. Hesperia, as the woman was called, was a healer, not a sorcerer, though that didn't surprise him given the remote location of Caer Diglin. Additionally, she was in fact quite a skilled alchemist. The tea she made was floral and sweet, and it felt like it warmed his entire body. "Thank you," he sipped the tea. "You really must let me repay you. I have some coin." Granted, it was the coin he'd gotten off those bandits, but he felt far less guilty about it than using Karya's coin. Hesperia waved her hand dismissively. "Nonsense. Times like these, with the continent trying to tear itself apart and the dead rising to torment the living, we need to stick together. Outsiders, too. At least let me gather some herbs from you to replenish your store." She shook her head and sighed. "Fine. If you see any red root or elf flower, you can bring it to me. But don't go putting yourself in danger, understand?" Raven nodded excitedly. Finally, there was something he could do for someone. Finally, there was something he could do to attempt to atone for his crimes. He only hoped that the gods would appreciate his efforts. Where the fuck was the red root? He'd found dozens of elf flowers, maybe hundreds, judging off the weight in his satchel. He'd found exactly one red root, but that one was dead. He was starting to think Hesperia was some sort of spirit of mischief, sending him on a wild goose chase to find a plant that didn't even exist. Raven grumbled and kicked the grass, sending a clump of dirt rolling down the hill. He followed it with his eyes until they landed on a procession of people in heavy armor. Paladins? They looked like paladins. They wore the paladin emblem on their cuirasses, but there was something wrong with them. Do paladins usually glow like that? Raven didn't have much experience with them, him having no arcane college and all, but he was fairly certain they weren't supposed to glow. And by the gods, what was that thing following after them? It looked like a homunculus from the pictures his father had shown him to scare him away from magic, which hadn't worked. It was pitch black, and it was massive. It was at least 3 times the height of the heavily armored soldiers. The leader of the group held his hand up, and they all froze, including the hulking behemoth in the back. Raven quickly ducked behind a bush, and almost simultaneously, the leader turned his head towards him. Raven was sure he was hidden, but he couldn't shake the feeling he was being watched. After a few moments, he heard the shuffling of metal boots, and it seemed that they started moving again. He let out a sigh of relief, and felt a point of a blade at the back of his neck. Shit. Crack! A leather-gloved fist hit Raven's face. He spat blood at the man, as well as a tooth. "Answer me. The Harbinger demands you know where you got your blade." "Fuck you," Raven groaned, his entire body throbbing in pain. He didn't even know why he was hiding it. Why did he care if this guy knew it was from the Legion? Maybe it was spite, or maybe there was just something about being knocked out and dragged into a cave in the middle of nowhere that made him feel uncooperative. The blade his captor spoke of was leaning up against the cave wall, humming softly. Raven didn't know if the paladin could hear it too, but by the rage that appeared on his face when he started swaying to the music, he guessed not. The paladin hit him across the face again. Raven's vision tunneled, and he felt his brain was rattling against the inside of his skull. That wasn't normal, probably. It felt like something was broken, maybe his nose. It was hard to tell when everything was spinning like that. The paladin glowered and stepped away. He turned to another man, his superior, judging by how tall his helmet was. Usually the person with the biggest hat was the one in charge. Raven almost chuckled, but the shooting agony in his jaw stopped that train of thought. Then he paused. The one in charge looked wrong. His armor was the wrong shape, the wrong color, even though color and shape were hard to make out in the dark. And it was hard to think. His memories were fuzzy, hard to make out, like trying to read a water-damaged book in a dream. Bring him and the blade to Sadler. The general will get something out of him, the one in charge ordered gruffly. Raven almost felt like he recognized that voice. It was gruff, with a subtle Valmyran flavor. Once again, though, it slipped away, the pages of his memory dissolving in the salty waves of what was almost certainly a concussion. That name, though. Sadler. Someone in the Legion had mentioned that name, right? A paladin or ex-paladin? Edric. Edric mentioned him. But why did he mention that name? Memories. Difficult. Yes, said Dragon God. The shorter one nodded and bowed. The Dragon Guard leaned over Raven, and even though his face was covered with his helmet, the sneer in his voice was almost audible. Raven opened his mouth to defend himself, to ask why he seemed so familiar, to curse him out. Whatever his plan, he never got the chance. The Dragon Guard's fist connected with Raven's cheek. It was a metal-clad fist. Raven's jaw shattered, and his mouth immediately filled with blood. He tried to scream, but the Dragon Guard grabbed him by the face and held tight. The blood trickled down his throat, and he started to choke. You deserve worse than that for your crimes. You're lucky you have information. The Dragon Guard spat, and then threw Raven's head back into the chair. The Dragon Guard turned on his heel and stomped out, leaving him alone with the paladin. Raven was never particularly strong, but he was resilient. He'd always been resilient, and he'd always prided himself on that. Every time he fell, he would dust himself off and get back up again. He was the eldest brother. When he fell and scraped his knee, he didn't cry. He had to help his little brother, who had a splinter on his finger. Meliodas had courage, Bedivere had talent, and Elian had wisdom beyond his years. Raven had to be resilient. He had to take the beatings from their father so the other boys didn't have to. He'd only felt so hopeless 3 times in his life. Those times were entirely devoid of light or optimism. First, when his baby brother Claudin had died in infancy. Second, when his mother drowned herself in booze following the death of her baby. And third, when his father got sick and didn't get better. Now would be the 4th time, with his jaw shattered, choking on his own blood in a cave in the middle of the most miserable place in Aethel. He was sure he was going to die there. The paladin laughed, actually laughed, at the tears that shook Raven's entire body, which only increased his agony tenfold. Raven wanted to scream at him, he wanted to spit on him, but all he could do was cry uncontrollably. He started to feel lightheaded. Was it just the pain, or was he losing too much blood? The world spun even more, and he felt nauseous. The sobs subsided slightly, and he whimpered. The paladin removed his helmet, revealing a head of slick black hair. His eyes were deep set in his head, and angry red veins were spread all over it. He looked ill. He grinned and took a pair of pliers from the side table. Now that he's gone, we can have some fun. He chuckled darkly. Raven struggled against his restraints, all of his remaining strength slowly draining from him. The tears rolled down his face and mixed with the blood that dribbled from his chin. He glanced over the blade, silently begging it to do something to save him. It didn't budge, obviously, but the hum got louder. Maybe it's trying to make it easier to stand the pain, he thought, only half joking. Paladin said something, but Raven had his eyes trained on the blade and his ears focused on the music. His eyes twitched toward the voice, though, and he realized the paladin wasn't talking to him. He wasn't even looking at him. He was facing away from him, his blade pointed at something in the dark he couldn't make out. Raven thought he heard another voice, but the blade was deafening now. He couldn't hear anything except the music, which is now able to tell was less of a hum and more of a chorus. Voices, maybe dozens, maybe hundreds, were singing what almost sounded like an operatic dirge. It was soothing, but at the same time, it made him feel like his ears were bleeding. Maybe they were. All the pain from his body had somewhat blended into a monotone buzzing. The blade had been a whole lot of trouble, but at least it played nice music. Raven felt something hot splatter across his face, and he passively looked back at where the paladin was. He wasn't there. Raven frowned. Then he looked down. "Oh, there you are," he said weakly. But given the state of his jaw, it likely didn't sound as coherent as that. The paladin was dead, of that much he was sure. He'd seen enough death in the last few weeks to last a lifetime, most of which he had inflicted himself. Perhaps it was improper, but he was honestly getting used to it. A pair of shoes stepped into his field of vision, just by the dead paladin's open chest. They were silver, but stained with something he couldn't quite make out in the slowly dying firelight. They were pretty. Raven made a note to ask the owner where he got them, and if he could get a pair as well. The boot stepped over the body, splashing into the pool of blood slightly. It probably had some of his, too. He would have giggled if it didn't hurt so much to breathe. A stranger crouched to meet his eyes. He was older than Percy expected, with heavy bags under his eyes and word lines on his forehead. His eyes were blue and stormy and filled with something Raven couldn't quite pinpoint. His skin was pale, almost abnormally so, and his hair was dark with streaks of gray. The man furrowed his brow. "Gods, you look awful." His voice was barely audible over the singing. Raven shrugged, and as the pain became too much, he whimpered. Then his eyes rolled back into his head.